Hello and welcome to the Communication Network's presentation of Retrofit Strategies, how to maximize your infrastructure when migrating from analog to IP technology. My name is Guy Walker. I'm the North America Trainer and A&E Program Manager for ComNet out of Danbury, Connecticut. This presentation is going to look at the three main options for migrating from analog infrastructure to IP infrastructure for a security and CCTV system. Okay, so if we take a look at where IP started within our industry, back in about 1996, the first IP camera was introduced. It's obviously come quite a long way since then, and one of the major trends advancing the use of IP technology is the megapixel camera. So being able to inherently improve the image quality of the images that you're capturing has driven IP greatly. Now you have new technologies like cloud computing, which have also added to the growth of IP. In this case, you can distribute the architecture of the IP solution and give you a lot more options for implementing both small and large systems. But what's also happening is that the edge devices, the cameras, the video management systems, getting video out onto your mobile device, all of those capabilities are often seducing or capturing much of the attention. And as a result, the networking component of an IP solution is often misunderstood or overlooked, and that's caused a tremendous amount of grief in our marketplace because it hasn't been well designed or implemented. And in general, our industry has not greatly adopted IP knowledge base. So there are a lot of both end users, integrators, distributors, and A&Es and manufacturers that have embraced it and learned the knowledge. But that's not true of everyone, and that's certainly caused some complexity in our marketplace. So if we take a look at where the IP technology is in our marketplace today, there's somewhere around 10 million aging analog cameras in the North American marketplace. They all have existing analog infrastructure, so typically coaxial cable or twisted pair cabling, also some fiber optics. But what's also happening is that end users are becoming much more knowledgeable about what their options are with technology for IP CCTV. Sometimes their knowledge is very accurate, where they come to our trade shows and they gain their own knowledge and they understand the advantages of megapixel technology. But sometimes their knowledge comes from watching too much CSI. So they think they can get a facial recognition shot off of an ATM camera, and we all know that that's not the case. In general, there are varying levels of IP expertise. There are a lot of people out there rolling the dice, meaning they're buying the IP technology and they're configuring it and learning it as they go. But what we've found with our customers is that the people that are most successful with IP technology are those that have truly embraced the technology, and they have learned as much as they can. They've brought on additional resources, and they have been able to speak to IT people intelligently. They understand how to select product properly, and they understand how to implement and support that technology. And really what we're all trying to do is we're trying to balance the risk of implementing an IP system with the virtues of what that IP system can offer today. So your three main options for migrating from an analog infrastructure over to an IP infrastructure are being able to encode the existing cameras, in which case you use a lot of the existing camera and cabling infrastructure. Your second option is the forklift option. This is where you rip out all of the analog equipment and cabling and power and then put in all new IP. Your third option is what we call the retrofit option. This is where you'll be adding new IP cameras and a new IP head end, but then utilizing existing cabling infrastructure to be able to do that. And so let's take a look at the first option, encoding existing cameras. So this first option is taking advantage of the most amount of equipment you already have installed with your analog infrastructure. You're keeping the existing cameras, which is a significant portion of the cost of a new system, as well as taking advantage of most of the analog infrastructure for cabling and power that you already have installed. So this is your lowest cost option, and this often drives this as a selector for migrating from analog to IP. However, you still are gaining the capabilities of an NVR solution at the head end, and if that is your customer's main objective, then this is obviously a very valid way to approach the migration. Also, depending on how you choose to deploy the system, if you want to put the encoders out on the field or at the head end, this may also give you new options for deploying new topologies for the system, meaning moving the network just within the head end or out into the field. If you move the networking components out into the field, that's going to give you much more options for not only distributing the architecture and the network components, but also being able to add additional signals onto that network infrastructure. So then combining both IP analog in the field and then bringing them back to the head end. So the most common way to approach the encoding scenario is to put the encoders at the control room. This gives you options for having single channel encoders or multiple channel encoders, significantly bringing down the cost of that encoded system. And now we can take a look at the first option, encoding in the control room. In this case, you can see that we have an analog PTZ camera out in the field with existing cabling, and we're going to add the encoder at the head end. This also gives you an additional option to continue to use the existing analog matrix switch and recording platform, and in parallel, add it onto a network and then add the video management system capabilities that are digital. So the biggest driver for using this option in migration is low cost. You've kept all your external technology and cabling and really just added capabilities at the head end. You get a little bit of the capabilities of IP, but you've done it at a very low cost. And if that meets your customer's expectations, then it's a perfectly valid way to approach the situation. Option number 2 is encoding out at the edge closer to the camera. And in this case, we've moved the encoder out into the field and most likely added new cabling back from your new network back to the head end. And now that gives us a third option to be able to add additional IP technology in parallel to the analog infrastructure, bring it back over the same cabling, and then now you still keep your video management system that's digital and also have the capability to keep that in parallel existing legacy system. So our third option for encoding is creating a hybrid system. And in this case, what we're going to do is take a look at an existing system that uses fiber optics. So in this case, we have an analog camera with PTZ control going into a video and data transmitter over fiber optics, coming back out analog into that existing analog infrastructure. And based on the history of communication networks with fiber optics, we've done this millions of times all over the world. And what's happening now is obviously those same customers want to migrate towards IP technology. So what we've actually done is allowed the capability to keep all of the existing infrastructure for analog and fiber optics and replacing the transmitter with a new product called the FBT10D1E. This device has an analog video input, serial data input, as well as a 10100 Ethernet port. And that all transmits over the same single fiber that was already existing in this case. And so what this product also gives you the option to do is add a networked switch out in the field, connecting that to the FBT10D1E, and that allows you to add additional, more than one IP device out in the field, and then again connecting it through that same fiber optic cable that already existed. So to summarize our first option for migration, the advantages of moving towards a encoded system are, number one is the lowest cost option, and this is what typically drives people to encode versus putting in new IP cameras. So your biggest advantages are cost and being able to add those NVR capabilities at the head end. And again, if that's your primary objective, this is a very good way to approach it. However, you're not improving the image quality of the cameras with megapixel or high definition technology. You're using those existing cameras, so you're missing out on that opportunity. Secondly, if you're encoding at the head end, then you are definitely not taking advantage of any of the network components and network capabilities like redundancy in the field.